consider House Bill 2014 by Chairman Parker. Chair lays out House Bill 2014. The chair recognizes Chairman Parker to explain the measure.
Mr. Chairman, members, thank you so much for your time. I know you're all in the midst of a busy day, and I appreciate your patience in allowing me to bring a couple of bills for you today. I'm first going to obviously talk about House Bill 2014, and I want to thank our TEA Commissioner Mike Morath for not only the concept of this bill, but for taking on the inspiration for legislation I passed last session called Pay for Success that I championed back in the 2015 session. Texas must vastly improve the mathematical reasoning skills of its students to ensure the continued growth of the Texas economy. Students do not develop strong mathematical skills when they move too quickly with inadequate practice, and unfortunately, some students are being lost in the traditional classroom style of teaching. I do not expect every math teacher to adopt different methods of instruction for every struggling student, but I do believe that programs that focus on individual needs can and should be adopted. The implementation of math innovation zones and select public school and open enrollment charter school campuses across Texas has only brought more evidence to the table of just how effective, highly individualized, self-paced math lessons really are in improving a student's understanding of this complex subject. Unfortunately, few schools in Texas have been able to develop creative programs such as the Math Innovation Zones program due to the deterrence of startup costs. It is crucial that more school campuses across the state adopt programs that focus on ensuring that students are not only increasing their understanding of fundamental math, but retaining that knowledge as well. That is why I've authored this House Bill 2014. This legislation proposes that upon application of a K-8 school district or upon an open enrollment charter school, grants specified for the purpose of math innovation zones should be utilized to implement relevant programs within that school district. Grants shall be awarded at the discretion of the commissioner of the TEA. Schools, though exempt from the state accountability system for the first 2 years of program adoption, will be monitored by TEA to ensure that the district is implementing the program with fidelity. Along with grants for math innovation zones, this legislation will allow for Pay for Success programs. The Pay for Success programs will be financed by private parties and awarded to school districts that have achieved specified measurable outcomes. I fully agree that the Texas House has done its very best to appropriate funds for education. However, the reality is that there is still unmet need. Allowing private parties to invest in education is not only important, it's a critical ingredient in cultivating greater education breakthroughs. With that, members, I conclude my formal remarks.
Public testimony on House Bill 2014, starting with Flavio Cunha from Rice University, testifying for the bill.
Thank you, Chairman, and members of the committee for allowing me to testify in support of the bill. I am an economist at Rice University, associate professor. I study education. The reason why I study education is because there is a large body of research that shows that education is actually a major determinant of long-run economic growth and the gateway for economic mobility. Unfortunately, the state of Texas is not doing so well when it comes to education. Only 35% of Texans residents between 25 and 34 years old actually have a post-secondary degree or certificate. We are really falling behind, both nationally and globally. So, for example, states like New York, Minnesota, and Illinois have that. The rate for them is 50%, and countries like Canada and South Korea, it's actually close to 60%. And if we need to, for us to increase the number of our youth that actually go to college, we not only need to send more of them to college, but we need to increase these skills and make sure that they have the necessary background to succeed while in college. In the past few years, my colleagues and I at Rice University have actually been studying how to use pay for performance to improve education policy in the state of Texas. This bill does exactly that. It allows TEA to actually identify new and promising teaching methods that can really increase the amount of mathematical knowledge that our children have, and it does so in a very interesting way and creative way, because it does shift the burden from public dollars to private investors. And private investors who will provide the initial funding for this initiative will only be paid back if independent evaluators can produce high-quality data that shows that these innovative new teaching methods actually achieve the goals that they're supposed to achieve. The bill does have a very specific and important component of it, which is the role of these independent evaluators. So because this is going to be the first time that such a bill will actually be implemented in the state of Texas, it's really very important that the Texas Education Agency identifies qualified individuals who can then provide high-quality data, unbiased data that will serve, that will ultimately determine whether the private investors will be paid back or not. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, members. Mike Morath, Texas Education Agency. I'm simply here as a resource if there are questions related to the bill. The bill, as you know, sets up a concept where the agency will support districts iterating through a re-engineered mathematics classroom experience for students, which we believe will deliver substantially higher levels of achievement, both in math that year as well as leading to algebra readiness. And the bill really has two components. One is the Math Innovation Zone sort of authorization itself, and other is a mechanism, an innovative mechanism to support possible scaled financing at very reduced cost to the state. So,
Commissioner, any questions? Representative Coop.
Commissioner, so can you walk through how you have contemplated the financing mechanism to work?
Absolutely. So the concept is just basic. What we would first go through is an RFQ process as an agency to ask for any and all blended learning systems providers to respond to an RFQ. To be admitted into the sort of complement of choices that districts could offer under the Math Innovation Zones program. That in order to respond and be awarded entrance into the RFQ, you have to demonstrate two things. One is that you have to demonstrate that you have the ability to measure implementation, the way the system actually works. So you can think, say, hours the students are online, the milestones that they go through, the degree of efficacy that teachers have in terms of training and support systems for it. So you have to have some mechanism to evaluate implementation fidelity. The second thing that you have to have is a demonstration that at high levels of implementation, that achievement scores go up, math achievement scores go up. And any respondent that meets those two criteria will then be eligible to be chosen by school districts. We wouldn't actually provide funding directly to the math systems providers. We would provide grant funding to agents or to school districts to purchase the software or to buy hardware or to pay for the sort of administrative changes that need to be paid for in order to implement it. But what we would do is facilitate sort of a pay-for-success structure and financing if a district wanted to do that. And the way that these would work is sort of an outside investor would evaluate the efficacy of the blended learning system, the mathematics system, and if they believe that high levels of implementation result in high levels of achievement, what they would then do is essentially provide a working capital loan, as it were, to school districts to pay for the system so that school districts can do this without spending any money out of pocket. Then if the school district achieves high levels of star achievement gains, then they pay the working capital loan back. If math scores don't go up, then the school districts don't pay the loan back. And so the private outside investors are essentially, they're investing in the quality of the program at high levels of implementation. And so the school districts will have to commit to high levels of implementation. If they don't, those working capital loans would be repaid immediately. That's essentially the hitch. The school districts have to implement high quality. If they do, they can implement essentially for free for a few years and then pay it back if it works.
So do you expect that the investors will become sort of like venture capitalists?
So there's a relatively small market globally for these kinds of pay-for-success programs. There's a program in Salt Lake, several in New York, a lot in the UK. And so there are, believe it or not, people who have a social investment focus, and they're willing to take calculated risks in order to accomplish social goods.
Testimony, obviously, that you just heard from our great commissioner and from our distinguished professor from Rice University. And I may just make one other comment, Representative Coop, pertaining to the method of finance these innovation funds. It's really also referred to as social impact bond investing. We call it pay for success. But typically, it's large investment banks, wealthy family offices, those types of individuals around the world that participate in these kinds of things that for the good of society. And I saw that as an availability, and I wanted us in Texas to be able to access that. So I passed a bill last session that enables any of our agencies to have access. And so now, just to connect the dots, the commissioner now sees the opportunity to utilize it here with regard to improving mathematical education in Texas.
Representative Coon.
Chair. So it's sort of like a lot of these wealthy investors put their money into a foundation that in turn, invests in the community in some aspect similar to that.
Yes, ma'am.
In this case, they could get a return on their investment.
Absolutely. Get a